this doesn't like follow the trajectory of what we usually do on the show, but we do talk a lot of anime. So there was no universe where I, a child of the 90s, and a DBZ kid, wasn't going to talk about the horribly sad news that Toriyama has passed away.
Yeah.
I am not really the type of person to get sad about celebrity deaths, the deaths of people that I do not know. I would say probably the last one that actually made me sad was probably Anthony Bourdain.
Sure.
Because I really liked his content. I really liked his the way he, viewed the world and more importantly, shared parts of the world I will never see with me and many, many other people. It's rare. It's very, very rare that I get sad about a celebrity death, but I'm still reeling from this one, man. And like I went such a long portion of my life not talking about or not steeping myself in my anime fandom. Yeah, we've talked about it a lot on our Final Fantasy XIV streams because God Almighty, is there it's basically a circle on a Venn diagram of anime fans and Final Fantasy XIV fans. There's a lot of similar themes and whatnot. It is a piece of Japanese media.
A lot of reading.
So, yeah. Well, if you manga,
depending.
I don't read.
Depending.
Yeah. Yeah, I do not read. Every character in Dragon Ball Z sounds like their American voice actor. That's DBZ.
Sometimes those get to you. Yeah, even Gillian will always be in English for me.
I can't imagine Vegeta, Piccolo, Goku sounding any other way.
Yu-Gi-Oh! For me was definitely though the Japanese
give me
version,
dub or give me death.
Well, it does cut a lot of the filler though, because 4Kids was concerned that nobody would know what was going on if they pop it upon a show in the middle of an episode. So the recaps are just awful and happening all the time.
Oh yeah. This Dragon Ball Z suffered from that in its early days too.
Yeah, but Dragon Ball Z is a very special topic to you. But you and I talked about it a little bit, and I think one of the things I didn't really give it credit for was just how much it did to break down that barrier of awareness of the medium.
Oh yeah, I mean it was one of the earliest breakthroughs that wasn't so transformed like Robotech was. Robotech was so changed from the source material that it wasn't really the same show. And it's interesting because I believe it was Saban had a hand in the first attempt at bringing Dragon Ball Z over, and it's not attempt is wrong because they were successful, but Saban they brought over they manipulated until they ended up with Power Rangers.
Yes, and Power Rangers is not the same show.
No, it's not. It is beloved. It's not maligned like a lot of other things are.
No,
but
it took on its own personality, but there's no who's the bullies that would. The comedy relief bullies that were in the hall, then
forget their
before
names.
The monster showed up and ate sandwiches, and they basically edited in an entire show. And even the Rangers, they did some pretty good flips and stuff too. But when they got in the suits, it was that original Super Sentai.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our Clips and Highlights channel. If you want to keep up with everything Kyle and I have going on, make sure you subscribe to the main Grinding Gear YouTube channel, which is where we actually do these streams. That's right, we stream right here on YouTube. Oh, and sub to the Grinding Gear podcast. Apple, Google, Spotify, really any podcast platform. We're probably there. Thanks. Yeah, because you didn't really grow up with DBZ.
No, my experience with DBZ, I didn't have cable. So the majority of my experience was I was in art class, and the kids around me were drawing the hair and trying to draw the muscles and the necklines and stuff. And so I went to Suncoast Video on the weekends and found the manga and would predict, using my powers of prediction, what Frieza's next form was going to be, while they all tried to argue about what it was going to be because I just looked in a book. I was spoiling them.
You bastard.
But I was also in, 5th grade?
That's evil.
So I was just playing games, messing with them.
I don't think it really blew up until 98, and we're both the same age, so we would have been...
So 7th grade would be more like there.
11? It started in 96. Saban first brought it over in 96, but it Toonami didn't start airing it until 98. And that's when it really like blew the F up.
And it was like the ads were so bombastic. Like, how could you not be watching Powerpuff Girls on in the background while you're playing StarCraft and not see just the screaming, loud, shooting lasers out of your fingers ads for Toonami? And it made you go, what the hell is that?
When I think of a voice over voice, I still think of the Toonami stingers. You grabbed that clip that we played at the start of the show, and that's like those Toonami ads, like Piccolo.
Yeah.
Like that's the voice
Piccolo.
I think of.
And not just Piccolo, like Piccolo, like really leaning into it.
Yeah, just incredible. It was just unlike anything we had ever seen. And I didn't grow up with Robotech, so hadn't really been exposed to that. I don't know. I went down a massive rabbit hole of reading about how and when Dragon Ball ended up in the States. And then I found out that originally it was Saban, and I think they commissioned something 60 some odd episodes for a dub and brought it over for WB/UPN syndication. And I think that's when I first saw it, but I'm pretty sure it was around like 98, because I could have sworn I remembered it airing in the morning before I went to school, right before or right after Pokemon. And I would watch Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon while I ate my cereal before I went to school.
Oh, wow.
And I could be misremembering. Maybe it was something else with Pokemon, but I think it was UPN.
Well, there's also like an escalation of sorts that happened with it, because we had even the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, or oh man, what was it? What was the samurais that would summon their suits?
Ronin Warriors?
Ronin Warriors.
Yeah.
Yes, that was around. And I watched a lot of Transformers. And that was, of course, a Japanese toy line that was being converted by Hasbro for America. Mm-hmm. And so we had a lot of these products around us, but we didn't know it was one medium really until Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z came out. And you started making the connections between products because we recognized the artists. And we said, wait a minute, Chrono Trigger, that looks very similar. Why did these two...
Dragon Quest as well.
Yeah. And before that, there just never seemed to be that through line of anything matching in our very haphazard blockbuster video lifestyle.
Yeah, because like I don't think Ronin Warriors in the 80s, because I know Robotech was an 80s anime, and like from artist to artist, anime style does change, but I also feel like through the decades, there's kind of an overarching look that also kind of you can chart the change in looks, because like God. Trying to go back and rewatch the original Mobile Suit Gundam, which is an 80s anime, versus what was modern at the time on Toonami, Gundam Wing. It was like, oh my God, this Gundam Wing looks so much better.
Well, and then you end up in that sort of like weird age bracket that we were in, where Dragon Ball Z was a little violent.
Yes.
And a little,
And you knew they were censoring it.
Yes.
And then
because Bulma's suit was vibrating on her because they had to paint a different swimsuit on her. So like in the shots, you could like see some skin on the belly being like trying to.
They didn't quite frame by frame it perfectly.
Yeah.
Or just blood in general. You could. They're like, is that sweat? What's going? Why does it look like there's something that could be blood, but it's not? And then eventually, if you kept up with Toonami, at night on Adult Swim, they would air a lot of the same shows, even sometimes in the same order as their Toonami afternoon block, but they were the uncensored versions. And I would ritually stay up every night. I don't know why. I'd watch Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing twice the same day because I just couldn't wait. I had to see what happened next. Like Toonami was appointment viewing for me. When it started airing, it would air at 5 p.m. Dragon Ball Z would air at 5 p.m. every day, 5 damn days a week, and God bless them, they aired it in order. So, like, the next episode next day would be the next episode in sequence.
Bold.
Dude, I remember the lunch table the day after Goku went Super Saiyan on Toonami the first time. It's all anyone wanted to talk about. It was like Game of Thrones at your adult job.
I was furious.
Was back then.
I was so lost. I had no idea. That's why I went to Suncoast Video and started reading the manga so I could figure out what the hell was going on.
Are we finding the origins of Hipster Kyle?
Yeah, and why a refrigerator had so many forms.
A refrigerator?
It was really
Frieza.
Frieza, yeah, it was really
God.
frustrating.
Oh my god.
And then he yelled enough, and maybe his son yelled enough too. And then some dude named Cell shows up, and he's like eating people with his tail.
Yep.
It was a very odd time.
It was.
I'll give it to my parents. They tried to help. They rented My Neighbor Totoro.
Hell yeah.
So they got that for me.
Miyazaki up in here. Let's go.
And from there, I was like, now wait a minute. Now this looks a lot like this other thing, Princess Mononoke. And lo and behold, down the rabbit hole you go.
I don't remember the exact sequence, but my whole life I drew. I loved drawing. That's why I ended up eventually going to art school, but I was always drawing as a kid. And when Ocarina of Time came out, well, that was been, 99? Or was that 98? That was 98. I think this was all around the same time.
It was and that's why to me those games like GoldenEye were all a part of this. It was that, what do you want to call it? Your violence awakening?
I mean, a bit, yeah. Your first edgy phase.
Yeah.
Your first edgy phase. Yeah, no, because there was a time where I thought violence was super cool. Me, it probably started with Mortal Kombat. I was a big Mortal Kombat kid, and I remember begging my parents to let me play that game, which took I think it was about a year to break them down. I was like, just let me play.
And for me, it was a stick figure Death Theater and like Newgrounds shows.
Yeah, that was a little later, wasn't
it?
That was a little. I don't think. Maybe I just didn't have a computer capable of Flash yet, but I want to say 98 was like my big anime awakening.
Which is funny because I saw Star Wars extremely young. Ew, the arm on the ground.
Oh yeah, that was gruesome.
Raiders
of the Lost Ark, man. That shit still burned in my memory.
My 4-year-old son's been like, in the backseat we'll be driving. He's like, what was your first scary movie? And I was like, Ghostbusters, the librarian and the cab driver and the dog in the closet. Like, oh my God, I was 5 maybe.
That's interesting. I agree. That scared me, but I wouldn't consider that a scary movie.
Horrifying.
It's a movie that scared me, but not a scary. E.T. honestly would be my answer if we're going with that.
Through the weeds there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know the exact order, but I know I was playing Ocarina of Time. I had the Ocarina of Time Player's Guide from Versus Books, not Prima.
Nice.
And Versus Books had full page art spreads of official art from Ocarina of Time, and I thought they were gorgeous. And I started just drawing.
Those were creepy too.
I was drawing as much Zelda art as I possibly could. I was drawing Zelda and Link and Sheik like every day. I thought it was so cool, and it was so different. Like the style of anime was so different than the cartoons that we were raised on in the States in the 90s. Like things were very stylized. You think about, it's an extreme, but you think about Powerpuff Girls, kind of.
Oh, that whole studio, the Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls.
Short, stylized, flat, gorgeous designs, really memorable silhouettes, but so different from something that was more, not perfectly anatomically correct, but much more anatomically realistic, with pretty much throw a dart at any anime. And I thought it was so cool because I was at the same time I was taking art classes on the weekends, and we were learning like actual figure drawing and proportions, and all of this hitting at the same time. So I got into what I would eventually learn was anime style from copying drawings of Ocarina of Time. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure the sequence was I was at Blockbuster and I saw Princess Mononoke and I was playing Ocarina of Time, and I'm like, because I didn't grow up with fantasy anything. I'm not like you. I didn't grow up playing D&D. Like fantasy was a completely alien concept to me. So my first true fantasy experience was Ocarina of Time. And so I'm in Blockbuster and see freaking Princess Mononoke. I'm like, what the hell is this? This looks amazing. So I rented it on a whim and took it home, and it blew my mind. And to this day, it's probably my still favorite, like overall single piece of anime media.
Vampire Hunter D. I love that.
I need to watch that at some point.
Have you not seen that?
I've never seen Vampire.
Okay.
No, I've never seen it. We should watch that together sometime. And then just like simultaneously Pokemon anime and Dragon Ball Z, and I was hooked, man. It was oh boy, I got made so much fun of for the showing up in Dragon Ball Z shirts at school.
Yeah.
So supremely made fun of. But like, yeah, and that was the realization I had. I think why I was so sad, and I haven't thought about this in forever because I think art school beat it out of me. But I used to just draw anime all the time. And the number one artist whose work I was looking at was Toriyama. I love that dude's work. I drew so much Dragon Ball Z. It wasn't even funny. Somewhere at mom and dad's, there's probably a box full of sketchbooks I never want to open again, just full of.
I can't wait to see your collarbones.
My collarbones?
Like a sixth grader, drawing some shaded collarbones on Goku.
It's when I started getting really into shading, because I bought a couple of the manga, which is the first time I was over like, oh my God, reading from right to left. Holy shit. Blowing my little, I thought I was the most cultured kid at school. But it was really out of like an innocent place of just like, of absolute complete fascination. It was so unlike anything I'd ever read. And yeah, I got it. I came for the violence, but I stayed for the heart, if that makes sense. I was just like, oh my God, I love these characters. I saw a tweet over the weekend that was like, the thing you need to understand about Dragon Ball Z is it's basically King of the Hill. I thought that was the funniest and most true thing I've read a long time ago. I can tie this into the wrestling story at the top.
I think it's a perfect analogy.
Like,
I don't even know what you're going to say, and it lines up.
7 or 8 years ago, Katie wouldn't categorize herself as an anime fan. She has anime that she likes, but in general, I think she's more averse to it than for it. I think she needs to be sold on it. And I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, I had finally gotten her to watch Death Note. She loved it. And it was the first time she finally was like, oh my God, next episode, let's go. And she actually got hooked. And we went through it. And then I think after that, we both decided to try Full Metal Alchemist together because I had never watched it because I thought it looked dumb. Sorry, FMA fans. And we got hooked on that. And we were like, holy shit, Full Metal Alchemist is amazing. And Katie's like, okay, what do we watch next? And I was like, I really want to watch Dragon Ball Z. And she's like, the yelling show?
Yeah.
The yelling show. I'm like, honey, it's wrestling.
It
is straight up wrestling. You have heels and faces,
yeah,
and
Piccolo
you
versus.
You have face turns and heel turns, and it's 100% professional wrestling, including the drama of it. Like it's that type of archetypal characters, and you also have the borderline soap opera drama that plays out in between the fights. And that's how I convinced her to watch it. And we ended up watching the entire thing. And we're both married to people who will not watch things if they're not enjoying them.
They will not watch
They will shut that shit down.
Yeah.
And we ended up watching the whole damn thing. I did it on Kai, though, not on the original run. So all of the filler was gone.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to...
Kai is much more faithful to the manga.
Is it re-edited or is it like a full redo?
It's re-edited and cleaned up.
Okay.
Because there were like damaged cells and stuff on some of the older stuff. It's great. I have almost all of it on Blu-ray because it was the easiest way to watch it at the time. And so I would order the Saiyan Saga. When we were done with that, I'd order the next one. And now we have all of it except for the Buu Saga because we made it all the way through and the Buu Saga hadn't come out yet on Kai. So that's the only one we watched in the original cut. But thank God, not the edited version that called Mr. Satan Hercule for the whole thing.
No, I mean, that would be a very much a true statement. I think that's what I had in college. We were learning, because I went to theater school, or, I went to FSU, but I did a theater degree. And we learned about kabuki theater and how you would strike poses to communicate your emotions so everyone in the way back could tell what was going on. So you do anger and you would stomp your foot when you did it. And oh my God, Dragon Ball Z is kabuki theater. Like they're striking poses of power in order to invoke these emotions and these feelings.
I think there's a lot of that in a lot of anime.
Absolutely. But that's when I finally understood it. And then, much connecting to your story earlier, I then went with my friend and watched on the projection inflatable TV wrestling, and I was like, it's all lining up.
It's all like a traditional form of storytelling at the end of the day. Like it's so cut from similar claws, even like as much as you want to study different cultures and stuff, and that is absolutely valid. Like there's so many similarities too between the way. Like not to try and get overly deep on shit that I'm out of my element on, but like it's humanity as a whole. It's fascinating, the similarities and the weight we put on storytelling. And so I don't know, man. I've been emotionally destroyed since I heard the news. I'm so sad that he's gone. Oh God, they just announced like new Dragon Ball content penned
Well,
from Toriyama.
And seeing the the statements being made from his family and his coworkers being like, it's now my responsibility to carry this forward. I hope I can do well. The simplicity of the services that were held. And while I didn't have that personal experience with it because had no cable TV and was lost in the cafeteria, it's really cool to look back and just see what a huge influence DBZ was in general.
Oh yeah,
to even our awareness.
Yeah, it like when I think what Pokemon is factually the most valuable property, like media property in the world, but like Dragon Ball is right there. I got into our mutual friend Patrick Beja's replies on Twitter this week, and because he made me realize something, and it's that I think there's a bunch of people our age that as kids never gave a crap about Superman, and I think it's because we had Goku. I think for a lot of millennials and millennial Americans, I would even say that this monkey alien child from Japan usurped like the quintessential American superhero.
Well, and that's what made it so different and stood out so much and made you question, what is this? Because Pokemon came out with this wave. At least there was a huge delay in the release in the States. But by the time we saw Pokemon, there was Monster Rancher and Digimon and so many gotta collect and sell the toys kind of lines that came at us all at once. We just assumed this was its own, the buy my things genre. We just went through He-Man, 10, 15 years earlier, G.I. Joe, Transformers. Like it just felt like more of the same. Even though I watched a lot of Monster Rancher. I watched a lot of Digimon. I didn't watch a lot of Pokemon because I'd have to hold the ears for it to be received on UPN 50 the entire time.
Some aluminum foil, man.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why UPN wasn't working, but it wouldn't show.
Yeah. Oh man. So you've never gone all the way through DBZ, have you?
No, I've watched. I've seen a lot of the core stuff. I've seen the full Frieza fight. I've seen the full Cell fight.
Oh, good. Okay,
but
that shit slaps.
I've seen a lot of a big purple cat man laughing at people.
Oh, that's from Super, which is much more recent. Which I haven't made it all the way through. I made it through the end of the Battle of the Gods arc, and then I keep getting distracted by other things. This is kind of lighting a fire under my ass to finally actually make good and finish Super. Because I was one of those kids that was like, oh, I don't know about GT. Because GT wasn't written by Toriyama. He
interesting.
Offered some designs and stuff. Like those are like a lot of that is his designs, but it's not his story. And so GT is now considered basically non-canon. I don't know enough about GT to go into the nitty-gritty. I'm sure there's more to it than this. But as I understand it, it is non-canon, and Super is the true sequel to Dragon Ball Z. So, and what I've seen of Super is freaking fantastic. It's almost worth... I like the movies because Super retreads the first two new movies that Toriyama worked on, Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. The movies obviously had a bigger budget, and the animation is pretty damn impressive. But then when they turned it into a full-on series, they like reanimated on a show budget a lot of that stuff. But some of the extra episodes, what you might call filler content, oh boy, they're great. There's like a whole episode where Vegeta just takes his family to a park.
So that sounds awesome.
It's not in the movie, and it's amazing.
That sounds great.
Yeah. It's so good. And I'm like, I can't believe I haven't made it through Super yet, because DBZ was such a massive part of my it's just early teen years. But I'm sad. But boy, what an impact.
Yeah.
What an absolute freaking impact. Goku is so many characters are iconic. Vegeta is my favorite. The amount of times in a given Final Fantasy XIV stream that I will mention Vegeta is, you would all be dead if it was a drinking game. But, Goku is up there, and for me, surpasses iconic characters like Superman. It's wild to think about. Because we've been talking a lot, conversations come up a lot recently with Mario because of the success of that movie. It's just like, oh yeah, oh shit, Mario's probably more famous than Mickey Mouse at this point. And it's just like realizing these upsets and from through the lens of a North American kid is interesting for me. I think it's really fascinating.
I'm lost in thought as to what would happen if I showed my 4-year-old the screaming man with power emanating around him, and I'm not ready for that.
It'd be very restless for you.
It would be a huge hit.
Probably not to play. Maybe pre-watch a couple Dragon Ball episodes.
Find a couple of key moments.
In my memory, Dragon Ball is less energetic, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think they're still yelling because he learns Kamehameha in Dragon Ball. So they're still yelling. But also, Master Roshi is kind of creepy.
Well, yes, you pre-watch a lot of stuff. You got to prove it, of course.
You got to screen
there,
it.
There are some tropes.
You got to screen this shit.
There are some tropes
in
there.
Got to screen this shit. But yeah, I'm sad about this. I'm going to continue being sad about this. But rest in peace, Toriyama. Absolute freaking legend.